At the last episode, we examined different ideas about what closing means because we're still on the conversation. How do you close the deal? And of course, you can't have a proper idea or efficient idea of how to close the deal if you do not even know what closing means. And in the last episode, we looked at different ideas ranging from the one time close, which is the big ask where you ask for the money, and the idea of the one call close, which is where you try to get the deal to move along incrementally because you're trying to gain a commitment on smaller causes of action along the line. And if I remember correctly, I think the example that we used was for those of you in the wedding space, someone comes to the booth, and the big idea is to figure out, are we a fit? If we're a fit, and then if we're a fit, then the next stage is to get them to go for a meeting where we can talk some more and I can get some more information. And then at that second meeting, the close would be to try and get them to come for another meeting where I can make the presentation, spread out my ideas, and see if I can get to convince them that I'm the right person to plan their wedding, and on and on and on. So that's the difference between the one-time close. Let's get the money right now, and the one-call close. At each call, each phone call, each email, each WhatsApp, each office visit, each whatever it is, we try and move it along by one small commitment at a time. So today's episode is just going to be a primer for what we're going to look at next in the next arc of the conversation. So, how to close the deal? To close the deal, you have to figure out if indeed you have a deal in the first place. So that's going to be pretty much the next series of conversations that we're going to have over here on the podcast. So, what is a deal, and how do you know that you've got one? Now, spoiler alert, for those of you who've been listening to the podcast for a while, I'm sure you already know the answer that qualification is how you know if whether you have a deal or not. And qualification is that process that we go through in personal selling and old school sales. It's the process of asking questions to figure out if there is a need or a want that the potential customer has, whether we have the inventory to match that. We get an idea of how it is that they make decisions, trying to figure out the decision making unit. I mean, that's what it's called in much more engineering circles. I mean, salespeople who are involved in the engineering process, they talk about engineering industry, engineering and construction. They talk about a decision making unit because the idea is that we need to find out who is involved in the decision making process so that we can bring them in right now. Because the idea is if we don't bring them in now or as reasonably soon as possible, we can end up talking to whoever it is that we're talking to right now, but at the end of the day, the person has no pull, and the person who can veto everything just comes in and says, you know what, I wasn't a part of this, we're not going forward, and then they just scatter the whole process. And then, of course, in qualification, we also try to find out to be sure that we are in sync when it comes to budget, financing, and all the money issues. So I'm sure you figured out right now that this is something that we all need to get involved in, whether we sell construction, whether we are in the wedding space, or let's see what else, plumbing, whatever industry that it is that you are involved in. So these are some of the issues that we're going to look at in the next recording. So this is just a primer, just to let you guys know what to look forward to and what to expect. So at the next recording, we'll get on pretty much with the show. So thank you very much for listening to today's very brief episode of Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based sales consultant and event media professional, Tavishima Ayede. The reason why I'm keeping this episode short is because I'm sure you guys have figured out I've been experimenting with time formats. I had been keeping successfully to the 5-minute time format before I disappeared last week when me and my household was pretty much ill for the whole week, and the last episodes ran over 20 minutes. But just let me know whatever it is that you guys prefer. Let me try and see how we can get back to the 5-minute thing and chunk things down into little episodes, so I don't make too much demands on your time. But let me know what you guys prefer. If you're listening on the Anchor app, you can send voice messages to me directly, and I can hear them and make them a part of the podcast. And if you're listening on Spotify, there's the community feature where you can leave messages and stuff like that. So pretty much just reach out whichever way that you can. I'll see your messages, I'll appreciate the feedback, and I'll take that all on board. So thank you very much for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next recording.